Call the meeting of the Conservation Commission for February 6, 2018 open. I will entertain a motion for approval of our January 16th minutes.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And we have a new public hearing to open for River Howard Street, Columbia Gas. Okay. I'll just read that one into the record. Under the Wetland Protection Act, Chapter 131, Section 40 of Mass General Law, as amended in the West Bridgewater Wetland Protection Bylaw Rules and Regulations, the West Bridgewater Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing the 6th of February 2018 in the McDonald Brown Conference Room, 65 North Main Street, for a request for determination of applicability on an application filed by Merrill Engineers on behalf of Columbia Gas, Massachusetts, to replace a gas main along portions of River and Howard Street within 100 feet of a BVW and 200 feet of the riverfront. And we're open.
Good evening. My name is Dan Rothabello from Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors. I'm here representing, as you mentioned, Columbia Gas of Massachusetts. This idea is for the proposed replacement of an existing bare steel gas main with a new HDPE gas main in portions of Howard Street and River Street. In total, approximately 2,985 linear feet of gas main will be installed, along with service connections to existing residences along the route. All work will be done within existing paved roadways or along their shoulders or within existing maintained lawn areas. Portions of this work, as you mentioned, will be done within the 100-foot buffer to bordering vegetated wetlands and the 200-foot riverfront area to the town river. The gas main installation will be done using the open trench method. This involves the contractor only opening the length of trench that can be installed and backfilled in one day. No stockpiles or open trench will be left overnight, and erosion controls will be installed at the limit of work prior to construction. No work will be done during any rain events, and filter fabric will be placed beneath the grates of two catch basins along the gas main route. Since the work will be done during dry weather, within existing paved roadways or along their shoulders, with erosion controls installed at the limit of work, and trenches backfilled at the end of each workday, we feel that there will be no impacts to the resource areas. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
John, do you have anything?
No, I don't.
Anybody in the audience questions?
I have one quick question, sort of not directly attached to this, but how do you determine when you're going to replace these lines like that? Is that under your purview or?
Not specifically. You've probably seen them driving around though. There's Columbia Gas vans,
Right.
and they actually, I'm going to call it a sniffer.
Yeah.
But they have something that basically they can drive along their mains and they can detect levels of gas. So if if it's small amounts, then it may not be a problem. If it's larger amounts, then that kind of gets
Decide.
flagged. And so what's happened here is they've detected nothing dangerous, but they're getting older. They kind of look at the records. They've done some inspections and they found that there is some minor gas leaking. So
Sure.
it's time to move on from the bare steel.
Gotcha.
They've done repairs like yearly for the last 7 or 8 years, it seemed, on that line.
Oh,
so,
is that right?
Yeah.
That's also the.
Yeah.
So it's time.
Yeah.
I have a question that's kind of related. Have you ever heard the estimated amount of lost gas because of all these leaks in these gas mains? Have you ever heard that?
I have not.
It's I can't quote it because I don't have it on the top of my head, but it was astounding to hear how much gas is lost. And I think the reinstallation of new mains throughout the whole area is an indication that they're losing a lot and they need to tighten that up. So not only for safety, but for economy.
Sure.
It's interesting.
All right. Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
Motion to close.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
And I'll entertain a motion to issue a -3 determination.
Make a motion to issue -3.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a good
you.
evening.
Next we have 586 Manley Street. Continued hearing.
I know Larry started the meeting last time. This is Rebecca from Silver Engineering. I have small little handouts with some of the changes that we've made. Now, last time we were here, we didn't show you that there was guy poles being installed. We now have locations for guy poles and erosion control around those guy poles, and I've brought the gentleman that'll help install these towers and this guy pole to answer additional questions if you have any. So they'll be 320 degrees apart. They'll roughly be about 110 feet out. They'll be within our side of this wetlands. The trench is going to be 8 feet wide, 8 feet deep, 6 foot, 3 feet wide, 8 foot long. So we will be doing a mini excavator to get out there, so that we're not going to get sunk in the wetlands. I've also included the water quality trench, 2 foot wide, along the edge of the gravel drive on the down gradient side, as well as on the slopes of the roof to catch any of the rainwater, as Delano had recommended, and around the generator pad.
John, any questions?
Yes, when you install the anchor for the guy, how are you getting them out to the site?
There's one of 2 ways, and it'll depend on what it's actually like. They can be poured in place after it's dug, set up a form inside the hole, set the anchor plate, which is on a extended rod, so it's above ground. And then it's, in fact, only a 8 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot section of concrete, but it's buried under 5 feet of soil for the added support. Another option is if it's too close to the wetland, what we actually did a similar project in Taunton. We poured them up where it was dry and used the excavator to move them out to the hole, dug the hole, and just set the concrete block into the hole. So it prevented any a concrete truck or any other equipment other than the excavator from having to go out. We also used mats so that the excavator also wouldn't sink or dig up too much of anything other than the hole we were working on.
When do you plan on starting this work?
That I don't know.
What was the question?
When are we starting?
When will it start?
Yeah, the project.
Probably in April, whenever the ground thaws. As soon as we can get in without snow and any impediments.
And then, of course, it would greatly depend if we have April showers, so the whole month rains, we'd probably wait until it dried out, because once again, that would just cause us problems in excavating the holes and not flooding, so.
So is there a timeline that you need to get this in by, or is it fairly open?
Well, we'd like to get it on the air as soon as possible, because certainly before we get to hurricane season, because it's hopefully, if we get it on, when we get it on the air, it's going to be an important communication system that all of the towns around this area will use, just as they use the FM station that we have in Marshfield that I've owned for 40 years. And it's important to us that we get the station on the air as quickly as possible, certainly by high school football season. But we promised the FCC and we promised you folks earlier that we would get this thing built as quickly as we could, so that this communications facility will be available to all the communities in this area.
All right, the reason I'm asking this question is in frozen ground conditions, you probably can get out there and do the work without burying a cement truck or creating a lot of mudding up of the site.
Well,
April, it's going to be a little iffy. Mid-May, possibly, it'll be dry enough so that you could do that without any impact.
Right.
So I didn't know whether if we put in the conditions that you could only do this in the latter part of May, beginning of June, whether that would be a problem with your licensing.
That was not a problem. We had turned on turned on the temporary facility. There's just a portable facility, it's just a wire strung between a couple of pine trees.
Where's that?
Pardon?
Where is that located?
That's it's on by the farmhouse
Okay.
on Manley Street.
I saw that.
And,
Okay.
We shut that off in December. We turned it on really just to satisfy the FCC's rule that says if a station has been off the air for more than 1 year, they automatically take your license away. So we have a good deal of working time now. But we would like to get the station back on the air as soon as possible so that we can begin.
I mean, how deep, how much frost is in the ground right now? I mean,
That I'm not actually sure.
because, I mean, that's,
Do you know?
Can we,
if it's not that bad. I mean, like John said, I mean, if you can get out there, at least dig the hole, and then you get
That's one of their points. That
the pads
Yeah.
poured and set in there.
After I spoke with,
Rebecca?
Rebecca. I was unaware at the time. I had just gone to the tower manufacturer and got the design of the tower to support what they wanted, but we hadn't discussed the limitations of the wetlands and everything, because at that time, they weren't really sure where on that property this tower was gonna go. So I just went back to them this week with the 110-foot guy radius. So I should have the design by sometime next week, but then the tower's gonna be ordered, and I'm not sure how long, it'll take a couple weeks just to get the anchor steel in. Once again, that's the important part, what you're looking for to get done while it's brown, so it'll all depend on that when the anchor steel gets ordered.
So does that mean that they're still designing the tower or the guy anchors?
Both, because it'll alter the tower design a little bit, just because the guy lines, generally what they do is the angle of the guy line, they go for an optimum of, like 75%, that's what they look for. Now, we're looking to come in a little bit more, so it means the sections that the guy line's attached to will probably have to be reinforced in some way. So they're altering the tower a little bit, not the height, not the size, just maybe a leg size or a bracing size. But the tower itself will still be the same height, the same width, just some minor modifications on the tower. But the blocks may wind up being slightly larger or slightly wider to allow for the added the decrease in angle.
I mean, would they go further out? or
No, they won't. That's why we went to have them go further in. They wouldn't want to put them further out because that's just, it wastes it. So they coming in, they can do it, but it's just changes guideline size a little bit, might change the anchor sizes a little bit.
Right.
So I'm torn between letting the hearing close without having these final plans, or writing in the order of conditions that we need to see the plans before they can start construction.
We can submit revised plans at the time of erosion control. We can,
When you get all the braces and everything configured to what it's supposed to be, at least let us know, and then we can, if it's that time of the year, it'd be good to get out there as soon as possible. I think.
So I'm
We want
inclined,
another to the next session. Is that crippling you in some way, or?
there's no guarantee that they'll have the design done.
When's the
in
next
2 weeks.
session? Yeah, I can't.
the
guarantee
20th.
that. They said they would more than likely have them to me by next week, but
Yeah.
they may
No
not.
guarantee.
I mean, we could write in also to the order of conditions that if it was to be done before May 15th, they need the padding and the mat to lay down. As part of it.
so if the commission is inclined to let it close, that I could put all that in
Yeah.
orders that would give us the ability to monitor and not let the work start until we have the final plans, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
I could do that. My report did indicate some things that still need to be dealt with. For example, they owe us still a fee. And then also, thank you.
Fees no longer owed.
All right, that covers it. And then some mitigation for allowing, this town has a no disturb 50-foot buffer along the edge of the wetlands. You're putting the radials in the 50-foot buffer, plus we discussed at the last meeting how you're going to put the radials out into the wetlands without any impact. It still needs a variance to be granted by the commission. And they grant variances only when there's mitigation being offered. So at one of the, at the last hearing, Mr. Perry indicated that you would make that tower available during emergencies where there was no power in town and be able to broadcast public announcements to the citizens in this area that would be without the ability of internet or some of the other electronic devices, because you'd be able to.
That's correct. And what we, during the last storm in Marshfield, the town used the communication system that we had set up in their emergency operations center to tell people where all of the emergency shelters were, and to basically keep track of everything in town. And we will provide a similar facility for the town of West Bridgewater. We hope you never have to use it, but it will be available to you. And we know how to do this. We know how to make this work because we've done it in Marshfield and we're doing it along the coast now. And if you want, you know, we could bring in the police chief from Marshfield to tell you how it's used and how it helps to protect the community. And I mean, we're rebuilding this rebuilding this radio station because it was here as WBET in West Bridgewater for a long time. The people who owned the property where the two towers were over by Route 24, they decided they wanted to use the property for something else, and they took the towers down. They sold the radio. They'd sold the radio station before. So we just want to bring a voice back to this area here. There is no local radio right now. We intend to put in an emergency generator with enough propane in the tank to run the thing without electricity from the street, without internet from the street, without telephone from the street, to keep the town in contact with the people in the town who need to hear the information.
So does that take any additional infrastructure to do that, or is it just an agreement?
What we will do is on the tower, we will put up a radio antenna that will communicate directly with the West Bridgewater Emergency Operations Center, and it'll be a two-way system, so that you can talk to us and we can talk to you, but more importantly, you can talk to the residents of the area and let them know what's going on. And it does work. We've done this for years, and it's important. When WBET was owned by the Brockton Enterprise, they were able to do a lot of these things. The people who bought the station from them didn't do that, and we want to bring that communications facility back to the communities.
Okay. Then the other mitigation that I recommended is that we have this area that was going to be managed, the vegetation management area, just south of the tower that's connected with that relocation of the isolated land subject to flooding. And that front area off of Manley Street for that particular section of this property may be tied up with development in the future, and it may be difficult getting out to the site without some right-of-way or easement. So I was suggesting in my report that we get an easement along the cart road. Will this cart road be blocked off by fencing, or the one that's going from Manley Street to the tower?
Yeah, the one that goes from the street to the tower, it probably won't be paved, although it might be, because that gives you better access when it snows. You can plow the snow off without making a mess. But we will allow that as an access point to other areas that if in fact if the Spadea family should develop that area in any other way, the driveway that we put in will be available to them, because the whole idea is to be able to get in and out of the transmitter site, and if other people need to use it, fine.
So the only fencing is gonna be around the building,
Around the building, generator, and propane.
so we'd be able to get down there if we needed to, okay?
You can get them.
So I'd like to put a condition in there that become an access easement to the Conservation Commission, so we can manage that vegetation area. And then people that are responsible for managing it can get in as well.
Do you plan on a studio somewhere for the station?
We will probably have, we know that we're gonna have, we're gonna be using for much of the music broadcasting, we'll probably use our Marshfield
Yeah.
studio.
Right.
Because we're gonna play older music, and the disc jockeys find it difficult to climb the stairs. But we're probably going to put a studio in Brockton for recording specialty programs and for people, just to have a business opening there. But we work very closely with Massasoit Community College, and so we may very well set up a studio there. We've been talking with them about it. They're under currently an administration change, so we don't have anything
Right.
final yet. But we've worked with Massasoit for 2 decades now, and we're going to use this station to help them train their kids to get into the communications business. But frankly, if we don't get kids in the communications business pretty quickly, then we're not gonna have a communications business.
AM or FM?
It's going to be both AM and FM. The AM will be 1460 where WBET was.
Oh,
The
yeah.
FM will be what's called a translator, and it'll operate on 101.1 megahertz FM with 250 watts. It won't be a big FM station, but it'll give good nighttime coverage to the station when, at night, AM stations tend to get interfered with by stations that are distant because of the signals bouncing off of what they call the heaviside layer when the sun isn't out. But the FM will provide a service, and the whole thing is completely passive. Our hope is that we'll have to visit the thing only once a month, because we're buying brand new equipment for it.
Yeah.
We want to do have to go up there a minimum of time to do maintenance. Everything that we put in there will be backed up with a backup piece of equipment, so that it'll be able to stay on the air. And as much as we like, going out to the countryside, we would prefer not to have to do it more than once a month.
Right, right. All right.
Anybody, any other questions? You want to continue, or do you want to?
I say we move forward.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think we're good.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close?
Second.
Moving second, all those in favor?
Aye.
I will entertain a motion to issue an order of conditions with the standard conditions we have, plus mitigation conditions that Sean has recommended, and putting in a time frame for mats if it's done before a certain date, that we'll figure out weather-wise which might work.
And what's the other 2 conditions?
Right.
Yeah. I'll make that motion.
I'll second
Moving second, all those in favor?
it. Aye.
So moved. And we will need a motion to issue a waiver for work within the 50-foot.
I'll make the motion for the waiver.
I'll second it.
Moving second, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I promise we're gonna make you proud of this.
Full size or too early, Rebecca?
Monday?
Full size, or is it too early to
I'll
get 'em?
have full sign, I have unsigned right now.
I'll take,
When I scribble on, and then I will
oh,
have,
okay,
I
good.
will have endorsed on Monday the earliest.
All right.
We have 102 West Center Street.
Process of elimination.
That's what I figured.
Later.
Anything else?
8 o'clock, I guess.
Because I don't know if you've got the answers.
Don't need the gavel?
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right, this continued public hearing for 102 West Center Street, and we're open. What do we got?
All right, good evening, my name's Dave Cleonard from Collins Civil Engineering Group. The first hearing, I did not have the green cards for the advertisements, so I got those.
I'll take them. I'll take them. I'll put them into the file. Thank you.
You'll notice on the advertisement, I was specific on the bottom to the time, date, and place, so that people could, and I did get a lot of responses by phone on what was going on, but nobody said they were gonna show up tonight, so. But there was some interest, so I just wanted to let the conservation know that. So we're here tonight, I'm here tonight on behalf of Tom Kennedy for a modification to the original order of conditions. He's had 2 of them previous to this. Tom has an active mind and he likes to change his mind, and he always comes into my office and runs ideas by me. And so this is just another rendition of his idea from the stuff that the feedback he was getting from the building inspector in the town. So the last modification, we had the building attached. Unfortunately, the gas company came in and they put all kinds of meters along the side of the building, and we would have to push the building too far back to get any kind of addition attached to the building. So now he wants to detach it and push it over 30 feet. He talked to the building inspector. That was the minimum is 30 feet from the existing building. We're going to bring that whole slope right over to the building. So that hill that's there, we're going to bring right over to the back of the building. That way we can put our roof drain into our existing system here. I've done some calculations that the system will attenuate all the storms for the roof drain. And I show that on the profile here. The design is basically from the last modification, just a very slightly larger area for the drive, which I've increased the stone trench around the drive to accommodate that. Tom wants to use a portion of the garage tenant area. Up on the first floor, it's just going to be a drive-in right off the ground, so it's not going to be elevated like the other buildings. He wants to use half of it as a garage and half of it as maybe his office, and then the second floor will be for tenants, that sort of thing. We do have enough parking spaces. I provided the parking calculations. The planning board has reviewed this. Hugh Hurley got back to me. He said that there was no problem with the modification under the planning board status. This will all happen outside the 50-foot buffer. Basically, we were just moving the silt fence a little bit further down the property, and we're moving the entrance a little bit further down the property to the structure. Everything will drain from the floor and from the street into the stone trench, and then it will drain off into the field that's there. It's basically the same design that we had before, but we just moved the building over 30 feet.
Where's the connections to the septic system?
The septic will be a Board of Health approved plan, and that's going to be a pump. So I don't believe that he's got that yet. We're waiting for these.
So will it tie into the other?
Yeah, it will tie in the front here. So it will be outside the 100. It's going to go right along the front, along with this structure as well.
Access of Howard.
And the other system is already designed to
Yeah,
handle
in the
it?
The other
driveway
system is
access.
designed to handle that.
No.
No.
The garage part, just for parking, no maintenance, no repairs, no oil changes?
No oil changes, no nothing, that's just gonna be for parking.
And the other question I have is, currently, he uses the back and drives around the current buildings to get access to it. Is that gonna continue, or is that gonna cease?
This back here,
Yeah, he currently,
he will, I would think, he has to cease that because there's just not gonna be any room to get back there anymore.
well, I just wanted to make sure, I didn't know whether he'd be coming in possibly where the new driveway and parking lot is, and driving around from there up to the back? or-
I'm going to suggest that he doesn't because he'd be driving over that stone trench and I don't want anything over that stone trench.
Well, with the 31-foot width there, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just throwing this out because I know what he's doing now. and
I
We've
know,
already
I
discussed
know.
fixing
Yeah.
that problem.
Yeah. I can bring it up with him. He actually said call him if there's a problem. He's down in Florida. He said I'll get on speakerphone, but I can honestly tell him, I can tell him that he's not allowed to do that anymore. It's just it's
That's
something
probably
he
what's going to be
does.
suggested, or
Everybody in the town sees him doing it, and
I mean, driving in this area.
Yeah,
he
yeah.
drives around
Yeah.
currently.
Yeah.
But now this 31-foot opening though, is this gonna be made for a drive? Or is it just gonna be
Grass
just
and lawn and
It's
Just
got too
grass
steep
and-
of a, it's too,
Yeah.
too steep of a slope to be able to drive it.
yeah.
So I mean, this spot over here where he uses to go here, this is basically for him to get in and out of his place. Just this area right over here.
Which is that?
That, we were just talking about.
Well, we were just
okay,
talking about
right
when he
here?
comes around. I mean,
Yeah.
he's not gonna stop using that.
Well, he should stop it because he's going into the 50. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that.
But he's doing that
If
now.
he get-
Yeah.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
which when he was in here with his proposal, we suggested putting in those
Yeah.
concrete block
Yeah.
thing, or something to stabilize it so he's not.
But it's a garage, so I'm sure
Yeah.
he's still gonna keep on doing it.
He's gonna have. He has this. He has a bunch of stuff in here. I don't know what it is, but he
Yeah.
does use this area quite extensively.
So I'm sure he's not
I
gonna
think
stop using it.
maybe what he's trying to do is move this stuff into here, so it's easier access.
Possibly.
I don't know. We could.
So there's,
I-
there are a couple of things that I didn't indicate in the report, but over on the far right-hand side, as you're looking at that picture, or the easterly side, he's got that shed,
Yeah.
and he's got trailers, and he's got vehicles that he parks in that grassy area
Mhm.
that is part of the, between the 100 and the wetland.
It's the 50 right there.
And so I think what we would want to do is to be able to restrict the access to that 50-foot area for those types of vehicles. We can word it by fencing it. I think if we just put up PVC markers, you can drive in between them. And the only reason I say that you might want to restrict it is because this plan has been amended again, or they're requesting to amend it, and they were originally showing the 50-foot buffer where you see it right now as well, and it's still being encroached. So I think you have to take the next step, which is deny the access of it, which brings up about that shed. He wants probably to still be able to use that shed. And we need to really get something cast in stone on how that's going to be dealt with.
Yeah.
And I was just out there today on the town-owned land and noticed that somehow yard debris, yard material, landscaping material has been now pushed down
Pushed out
over
into
onto
it,
the
yeah.
town land, and that's gonna have to get cleaned out of there. So I think we've got a few restrictions that we wanna put on this in order to allow this amendment. And I think overall, if he's really trying to stop driving in there to that, the older, original garage under, which tended to become quite a problem because of the wetness of that soil.
Sure.
It just ended up becoming mucky and tracking it back and forth, so that might be the reason why he wants to do this. So I've got a number of concerns that, on the face value of the plan itself, I have no concerns. But then these other side issues, we need to have a handle on them. And I think we can put it in the order of conditions. I just think we have to settle on what we want to use as a restrictive
It would be nice to
measure.
see on the plan an actual access route to that shed, so that we have a designated way in and out that's a permanent.
So
that we
still
can actually
allow him
reference.
the use
Right.
of that,
Yeah.
but only that area.
Right, I mean, if it's something off of the parking area here that's an access point, or, I mean, I would prefer not to have the access off of 106.
Oh,
I mean, off of the,
No,
further down here.
Absolutely.
I prefer to have it an off-street access, so we don't have another.
Why are we even using the shed? Because it's always
Well, it was
been
there, it was there,
Okay.
before you start any of this project.
Right now, I think he keeps a lot of his maintenance for the yard, stuff there, his lawnmowers and his cutters and stuff.
So that shed bait was put in before we established
Anything
a
was-
50-foot.
I believe the police chief,
Yeah,
the police
that's
chief had that
powerful.
shed for a while, put it in there.
Okay, well. All right. So we have a few things we need to do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see a problem necessarily with trailers
On
being
the
parked there or
surface.
stored, but, yeah, there's been pickup trucks, there was looks like a SUV that they were trying to market or sell from the car dealership over the winter. I mean, that we probably would wanna restrict and not allow the usage anymore. But yeah, I think we need to address that while we're.
I know that this ceiling height here and this part is low and it's inconvenient for him, and I really do think he wants to get his stuff out of there because I see him there
How
and
do you even get by over here?
Oh, he's doing a good job keeping everything out.
Oh, he's coming in.
Coming in, because this building
Tidy it
isn't
up
here right
and
now.
keep
No. Is there gonna be
Getting
a driveway here then?
No, this is all gonna be just grass.
So how do they get by here? That's a
Good.
wall, right?
Now, is that
Basically, this is just to be
30
able to walk to.
1 foot
access. You won't be able to drive to
separation?
How about-
So that was
how do you get
building-
over here?
it. That is right
That's
here.
code for,
There is
as
an
far as you
entrance.
can be away
Oh,
from
road.
the
Oh,
building or
okay.
from
it
the.
has to be a minimum of 30 feet. I put it 30.5 feet, and that's a
Is that
fire
from the
code.
building or is that from the gas
That's from the building,
from the building?
yeah, that's from the building.
There's nothing saying
There's
it's gonna
nothing
be a
that's-
certain.
yeah.
from
He
the
was
gas.
thinking about doing a breezeway over the gas and that sort of thing, but then he just decided to move it away from the gas all completely. Because the gas just pushed the building back too far.
Yeah.
But I think that's a fire code. It didn't really have anything to do with it.
All right.
So even though my report had made a different recommendation, I think there's enough questions here that maybe we can have Dave talk to his client who's in Florida at the time, and he's probably gonna come back in a while, not forever. but, so we could get the communication going back and forth between,
I mean, he's not looking to break ground on this.
No,
like-
absolutely not. And I told him that there were some issues with the conservation commissions and the comments that we received back that we may go for an extension for,
Right.
that is not a problem at all. I don't know if he will be here for the next meeting, but I can certainly talk to him about what's he doing with this area here. You
Yep.
know, you can't access that anymore. You have limited access to the shed, and I can relay
Yeah, if you could
those
feel out
comments.
kind of how he wants to
Yeah.
access the
Yeah.
shed, what pathway,
Yeah.
so that we can put it onto the
I certainly will.
plan and,
Yeah.
and address that.
and what I could do is try to summarize what we discussed in an email to David, and then have him get the answers to that, so that it's specific as to what we're looking for, that it's, once those items have been addressed, we would be able to formulate some type of conditions that would match up with it.
Great.
Great.
Otherwise, everything looked pretty good.
Well, I
So-
appreciate that, and yeah, I will, I'll talk, I'm gonna call him tomorrow morning, and we can start the conversation right then and there with what I remember, and then, when I get John's email,
And then if
We
he's
can
not
make it
back
more
here for the next
specific.
meeting, we can
Yeah.
still
yeah.
put it to bed, hopefully.
Yep.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to continue.
Motion to continue.
Second.
Moving in second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
That'll be the 20th. Yeah, the 20th, or unless you want to go a little longer. It's 2 weeks from tonight.
If I have to, I can come up here, but just request a night.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right, we have Root Estates roadway and Root Drive Place, which I believe both have been asked to continue.
Yes, the planning board still has some concern about the proximity of these rain gardens and drain basins to these people's homes. And so the planning board chairman called me to discuss it, and I said that the commission would not approve until you're satisfied. And we deferred all our additional drainage reviews to your consultant, because originally we had our consultant doing the reviews and the planning board's consultant doing his review for them, and they haven't really changed the plans all that much except for the shapes of the lots. And the planning board still has concerns over these maintenance of the drain systems, so they're going to require a homeowners association to do the maintenance, and they have sent those documents to town council to have that reviewed. So considering the fact that town council will take a while to review it, and that the planning board chairman just had a knee replacement operation and he'll be off his feet for a little while, the engineer asked if we could continue it for a month, so I went just 1 week longer, actually 2 weeks longer, to March 20th instead of March 6th.
All right. I'll entertain a motion to continue to March 20th.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Moving and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Now, does the selectmen have to, do they approve the homeowners association?
No, the planning board.
The planning board does, okay.
Yep.
Okay. Next we have our administrative items, which we have John presented memorandum for the budget and the proposed budget. Anybody has any questions?
So just to explain, the selectmen had asked for a level funded budget, and the only thing that is going up is the contractual salaries of the clerical salary and my appointed official salary. The number, as you see in the budget, seems to appear to be more than 2.5, which is what we were asked to keep it to. And that's because the hourly rate that was used for fiscal year 18 was established by contract, and the number put in the budget for the year was incorrect. So the new rate is based on 2.5% of the hourly rate of last fiscal year. And the amount, even though it was incorrectly put into the fiscal year 18 budget, won't change, so that the appropriation stands as it was. We made up the difference in the, by taking just a few more dollars every pay period out of the Wetlands Protection Fund. So it balanced out so that the appropriation stayed as it was voted at town meeting, even though it was an incorrect number. And the same basically goes for the clerical union. They actually were supposed to get a 2.5% last year, and then an additional 2.5%, I believe, may be the result of this year's negotiation. And it came out as you can see in the increases, a little bit more than 2.5%. And again, that was based on the number used in the appropriation for last year. That will not go over that amount because there's an appropriation that was put in last year for this retroactive pay. So that will all be taken care of through the selectman's office. So in effect, all the other items stay exactly the same, the mileage, the dues, the office expenses, everything else. And we haven't spent that money yet on the Chromebooks because we're not hearing anything about it. So today I made a point, and I just didn't get to it, to call Hub Tech and ask them when they plan on delivering them. And if they say, oh, they were already delivered, then we can get into it because supposedly that was the case, that they were delivered. We haven't seen them. And we're not gonna sign off on any invoice until we get that. So I'll start discussions with them on Thursday when I get back to work and find out. I'll start off by saying, do you have a delivery date? And then if they say, oh, you owe us the money and we delivered them already, I'll say, no, we didn't, and we can get into it at that point. But it just seems as if this has just gone on too long. And if somebody did get them, then Hub Tech's responsible because they didn't get my signature or anybody in the office, so. We'll see where that goes.
Do we have access to any other funds besides what we get from the town?
We get donations that are made periodically from land trusts that the
None of the fees?
The wetlands protection fee goes directly into a protected account, and then the bylaw fee, like for the $100 tonight, goes into the general fund. We do have people purchase the conservation signs,
Yeah.
and that money is a revolving fund, so the money that comes in, we just order new signs. So we're not really putting that into any account that we can have access to other than buying the signs. So it's called basically a trails account.
I guess what I'm driving at is the clothing and footwear. I mean, I've been out with you and you have to trudge out into the wilds, and I think you're entitled to get it. I mean, any department in the town would be getting it if they needed it. So,
What about increasing the delineation fee?
I mean,
That
how do
would
we fund
offset
that?
maybe
We could do that.
giving you like a boot allowance or something like that every year. I think because that's what we get at work, is $100 boot allowance. So,
I would say at present, I'm satisfied, and I put it in the report that I wasn't looking for that. But maybe by the time next year's comes
Yeah.
along, I anticipate that some of the goals that might be set as part of the contract is going to be setting goals in the second year. And some of those goals have to do with stormwater, and that means getting down into the nitty-gritty outfalls, standing in the muck and mire, and I think at that point it might be appropriate.
Yeah.
And so maybe we can be prepared by having some increase in some of these
yeah.
fees, like you said, Lee, with the delineation, that some of it would go in. We're also working on a couple of other situations where the electronic billboard over on Pleasant Street,
Okay.
they were supposed to be giving the town a certain amount of money, and there's been some talk about having some of that go into the conservation and be used.
No, I don't understand. Like, I can understand that with the electronic signs. Now, what about these solar fields? Can that be a part of something like that too?
I suppose we could. I mean,
I mean-
we'd have to discuss it with the next applicant, but we can't go back on.
No, I understand that, but I'm just saying in the future. I mean, they're putting them up basically within the wetlands themselves, and
Yep.
it's the same as the signs. Is my, that's from what I can see.
Didn't they make a deal with the town to do some kind of electric,
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
would that be like a separate
But they
conservation
must
type
have done
fee,
that.
or,
they must have done that with the signs though too, right?
yeah?
It hasn't been,
How would they do
hasn't been
that?
finalized, but it's
Hmm.
been agreed to by the applicant to do that, so
maybe we
you
should
could,
combine that into, like you said, with the conservation.
yes, and if, let's say in the future for the solar,
Hmm.
that maybe some of it, even though it's not a town project like the driving range was, I believe that was supposed to
Yeah.
kind of offset some of the municipal
Yeah.
electric bills. Maybe a similar type thing could be discussed with a developer for a private one, such as the one that was up on Spadia's
Yeah.
property.
Because
We just have to think about it at the time that it's coming in.
Because it would, the property owners getting, it's leasing the land, so take a little bit of that for allowing for us allowing that to happen within a certain area. I mean, granted, you could probably put a subdivision in there too though, but give a little feedback to the conservation to help for,
Conservation projects.
Yeah, it would be nice to have
And
a
expenses.
little, a
Yeah.
little place where we could use to,
not much.
how we want people to take care of properties. So if we could make that a stipend or something more
Yeah.
interesting, or even have equipment that people could use,
Mm-hmm.
I think would probably
I
make
think
it
it
more
would be
attractive.
So we'll have to keep a little bit of innovative ideas when the next project comes in,
Right.
and think about that ahead of time.
Yeah, it's like a maintenance, wetlands don't require much maintenance, but we have to keep out invasives and things like that, so, it would be nice to be able to use some funds.
If I may not have this correct, but I think it's somewhat accurate, is the town of Dayton had a gas-fired power plant in their town proposed and went through the permitting. And as part of the developer's agreement with the town, I believe the highway department gets a new truck every year, or when they need a new truck. And it says the town, and then it has the name of the power companies
No.
under it as
Provided
well.
by.
That's
Yep.
good.
Which is good.
So they
Yeah.
get a little bit of publicity
Right.
that way, and the town gets a truck. And it, ultimately, the developer is making profits, obviously, and the town is getting somewhat of a benefit that the taxpayer doesn't have to fund, which is
Right.
a new truck when it's needed, so.
I mean, there's more and more of this stuff going up, so I
Right.
think there should be some kind of benefit to the town
Right, and they can advertise by saying protected by.
and departments because these develop.
Certainly
they're doing
helps
it
the
in other towns, so,
taxpayers.
Yeah,
I mean,
And-
we're not.
absolutely.
And again, you don't wanna stifle the development for that particular project to the point where they say, gee, we're not
Yeah.
gonna make any money,
Of course.
so we're not gonna do it, but at least the town should benefit in one
Yeah.
way.
Mhm.
So we can keep those things in mind when we get another one.
So the clothing issue is, you're okay?
For next year.
Yeah, for this year. Next year, I think from what I can see, one of the goals is gonna have me out there,
Yeah.
Looking in some
You
pretty
deserve
dirty
to have
places.
it. Simple as
We're
that.
getting, we're getting up the delineation
Yeah.
to
Of course.
offset that, yeah.
so I appreciate that, but I think this year we'll leave it just as it is, and
Yep.
All right.
so thank you.
All right, any other questions?
Mhm.
If not, I'll call for a motion to endorse the budget.
Make a motion to endorse it as written.
I'll second the motion.
Seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Check number 7 on John's list, and the next one on is 225 South Street.
The owner, Mr. Florestal, came in to the selectmen, came into the town hall last Friday. It's a day I don't work, and spoke with Tracy from the selectman's office. and she said that she would give me the message that he had been in. And so I called him on Monday, and he came over Monday afternoon, and I explained to him what the issues were, and he informed me that he's no longer parking trucks on that 50-foot buffer to what we believe is a wetland, and that he only has one truck in his driveway now. And I said, as far as parking a vehicle in the driveway, it doesn't concern the commission that you're impacting the wetlands because the driveway is there. As far as whether it's a allowed use or not, you're gonna have to go down the hall and talk to the building department. So I said, but we do have an enforcement order that requires you to flag the wetlands and come into the conservation meeting. And he said he would come tonight, and I know he's not here, so apparently something came up. So I felt that we were gonna be able to at least get a handle on what the issues are out there and some commitment from him to deal with it. And he's not here, so I think what we'll have to do is let me give him a call, since I have his telephone number, and find out if it was just an oversight that he isn't here this evening, and would he appear at the next one. In the meantime, after discussing that with him, I know he was in today and tried to set up an appointment with the building department. And again, it's outside of our jurisdiction, but I know he was attempting to do that, so.
Well, at least he's come in and opened up communications, so.
Do you have to replicate that area?
Well, that's gonna be something that I have some pictures from before,
Yeah.
and I went and checked on Street View of Google, and it just so happens it was all before any of these other things were taken down. So I have good pictures of what it looked like before and what it looks like now. And when we have him come in, I feel that I'll put up the screen again, and we'll discuss with everyone what you want to do. And some of it might go back on its own.
Yeah.
You might want to have them do some plantings. Really depends, I think, on how you perceive his reaction to your discussions. And by not showing up this evening, that's not a good indicator right off the bat. I do believe he seemed to be sincere yesterday when we talked, and seemed to understand that he needs to hire a botanist to flag it. I just am a little concerned that he's not here tonight, and whether that was just a show or whether there's another reason why he can't be here tonight. So I'll call him and try to get a handle on what he's going to do about this, and then give everybody an email update, and then you can at least be thinking about it for the next meeting.
Licensing agreement for the Model Airplane Club?
I did get a letter back from town council with a few edits that they feel need to go into it. I'm going to put that into the document that I sent and to the town council and return it back to them, see if they're okay with it. If they are, then I believe the town administrator wants the selectmen to also approve it. And even though it's our land, I think that the selectmen have to be on board with it. And if they approve it, then it'll be ready for signatures by the club and the Conservation Commission.
Awesome. And the next thing on the agenda is to approve archiving of the 2016 and 2017 minutes. And anybody that wants to take a look, this is 2013 to 15.
Very nice. Yeah.
And basically what we started doing was catching up, and we're almost all caught up now with all our minutes and archiving them into a format that'll be permanent.
Very nice.
And the gentleman that does them does a very reasonable price. For under $250, he'll do that type of a book.
And that's just
Nice.
what, 213?
That's 213 to 215,
Oh,
and then
okay.
216 and 17 would be the next
About how much?
250 or less.
Not bad.
So we have it in the budget, we can spend it, Kitty
Sure.
recommends it,
Yeah.
and got a quote that'll be under 250, so I'll entertain a motion to authorize the binding of the minutes for 2016 and 17 not to exceed 250. Got a motion, second? All those in favor?
All right,
So moved. Awesome.
So that was Lee and Ryan?
very nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool when you look at the really old ones that we've seen that,
Well, that'll last a long time.
yeah.
Didn't Kitty say he may not be doing that much longer?
Right,
Yeah,
I mean, we'll get it
so there's a
at
need
least
to,
one more,
Yeah.
hopefully.
you know,
We'll see how far we get. And we do have some signature things, and we also have anybody that wants,
Oh, yes, those are
ET
good.
Engineering has
Yeah.
dropped off
Thank you.
a bunch of pocket calendars.
They don't need recharging.
Yeah, anybody wants-
Anything transpired from your photos you sent around about the guys clearing next to the construction?
John?
Oh, no, thanks.
No, this one?
Saw the markers. Remember the email you sent out with the pictures?
Okay, yes. 81 Ash Street. I went out today and they have cleaned up the sediments that went over the small diameter wattles that were there, which when they first started the project, it was all flat.
Yeah.
It was a lot of brush and so there was no really need to have anything more than the small diameter wattles. But they ended up building everything up so high with stone retaining walls and then a very sharp slope from the top of the stone retaining wall to the foundation.
Yeah.
First rainstorm washed over and overtopped the wattles, so they are working on correcting that, and as of this afternoon, they hadn't gotten it done, so I'm afraid that if they don't get it done probably by noontime tomorrow, then they're gonna have some more erosion that'll occur, so we may have to have them pull it back out again. And so I'm staying on top of it. The neighbor across the street has my phone number and keeps me appraised. They also have some drainage issues that don't fit with the original design. They had proposed having a swale between the new house and the existing house, and it just doesn't work, and it's puddling up and creating an issue possibly with the neighbor. And so today they had the engineer out there today looking at it to come up with a solution, and I told them as soon as they have any ideas to run it by me so that I can keep track of it, because the original design didn't work and I don't want them proposing another one that's not gonna work. And so now that we know what the final grading is around the house, other than the loam and seeding, we can tell what's gonna work and what's not gonna work a lot better than a piece of flat ground.
Were they working though beyond the,
No, well, they ended up having National Grid come out to run power from the pole to the house. And they had to cross up in the air, of course, with the power line across the 50-foot buffer. So National Grid doesn't do any cutting, and they said either get it squared away and we'll be back sometime to put the power up to your house, or take care of it while we're here. So the excavator was on site with his machine,
yeah,
and he took the bucket, raised up the arm of the bucket, and flopped off a bunch of branches that were in the way. And of course they fell into the 50-foot buffer.
okay.
And so they were out there with chainsaws cutting up the limbs that had come down, and also decided that, well, this limb landed in a thicket of brush, so they cut the brush as well to help pull out the limbs. and the neighbor reported it, and I came down, and sure enough, the neighbor was correct that they were disturbing the 50-foot buffer. So they were told to take the brush out by hand outside the 50-foot buffer, not to cut any more brush, and I don't think the damage was all that much, but
Yeah.
I did say that the pipe was there
Your
with the sign that said
frustration with
protected,
pipes, yeah.
and I guess we may have to put it in 3 or 4 different languages so that everybody
10 feet
understands
tall.
what that means.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Nice pruning job, I'm sure, on the trees.
I was
too,
just
that
thinking
they-
the same thing. I'm like, that poor tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's the best way to treat a tree limb, is to whop it off and
Yeah.
Tree's gonna fall over.
Anybody have anything else?
No, sir.
not that I can think of.
Oh, I am gonna say, I have unfortunately found out that I'm gonna be in New York for Friday and Saturday for MAC this year.
Oh, well,
So no Mac?
Yeah, no MAC for me. We are short-handed and staffed right now at work, and
Oh, so work.
I got
got a
The shorts.
presentation down there.
I have a show to go to
Yeah,
cover,
Cabot's.
so I'm heading to upstate New York.
So I'm still going. I'm on schedule for it. And if anyone wants to ride with me, just let me know, and
right.
I'll carpool with them. But I'll be doing the driving.
Now, how would I go about signing up? Just online?
Yes, I'll send you the link.
Yeah.
I'll send you the link, and
Okay. Is it pretty much, it's like an all day, like 8 to 5
Yeah.
type of thing? Is it?
definitely
Is it still in
7. We usually leave here at 7 and don't get back till around 6.
Okay.
So it's definitely a long day, and they feed you lunch, but as part of the registration.
Okay.
And the way the town handles it, you pay for the registration and then get reimbursed afterwards.
Right. Just charge it or?
I
So-
think you can online.
But I also heard that John sings on the way up and down. That's part of the deal. You gotta sing with him.
So the oldies but goodies, though.
Motion?
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded.
Woohoo!
We're done.